Hey, welcome to the Judo Crypto Podcast live stream. I did a little test one a little bit before. I don't have these things scheduled, and my audience is pretty small, so these are not going to be. Obviously, I'm not going to have any kind of thing, but I need to actually start upping my video game per se, because that's a really important thing to. Well, I have been basically ignoring it. All I've been doing so far with my YouTube channels, I take the audio from the podcast, I throw some related pictures of either the guest or the topic, and just so that people, if they like to, use YouTube versus another medium, even for the podcast, and they just listen to it, then I just am going to give whatever the people want. So anyway, so this is the beautiful studios. Yeah, it still looks. I've not made these studios specifically for live streaming. So if you've seen any of the stuff on Instagram or whatever, but I'll just kind of show it a little bit. Off to my left here, I've just taken an old TV box and put some, half-inch styrofoam, or that may be quarter-inch. Behind me is the same thing. And then off this way, I got another little panel with some other stuff. If you actually look right here, this metal Monero panel is actually from Link's Art, which you can find on Twitter at Link's Art Collection, I believe. They got some really, really neat Bitcoin crypto-related artwork there. So I just want to give a quick overview of what's been going on with the podcast over the last month. I'd kind of taken, basically a week or so off, a couple weeks. Actually, I think I skipped like 2 episodes or 2 weeks of episodes. Actually, might have even only been 1 week, if I'm not mistaken. I'd already pre-recorded a couple. But so I've got coming up here are some of the guests that I haven't recorded yet, but I've either got them on the books or we're trying to find a date in the next, 4 to 6 weeks. Michelle O'Connor, she is the, head of basically marketing and community over there at Uphold. They are kind of very similar to Coinbase as an on-ramp for fiat. They offer 9 different cryptocurrencies, precious metals, and I don't even know. It's quite a few world currencies. It's probably like 20 or something. So within there, you can trade those all around if you want to. And the cool thing too is if you're Uphold and I'm Uphold, it's actually free. There's no fees, so that's pretty cool as well. So I've been a big fan of that. It was more out of necessity that I even discovered them, because I got kicked off Coinbase for a reason I've never been given. Never figured it out. I asked multiple times, especially right when it happened, because I was. Gosh, that was, I don't even know, like August, September of 2017, which if anybody remembers 2017, kind of a bad time to be having, your, not having access to, any of your, crypto platforms. I've also got Crypto Shill Nye. I don't know if you know him off Twitter. Kind of came out of the scene in 2017. Does like trading and all that other kind of stuff, but I really like his outlook. He's talked openly about having been in recovery and all those sorts of things, and getting off of kind of giving onto a cleaner, healthier lifestyle. He's very positive, and that's kind of what I want to talk to him about, was kind of that background of that stuff. Peter McCormack of What Bitcoin Did podcast. We've been trying to work through schedules the last couple of weeks, but just hasn't turned out. I love that podcast. Just listen to his latest episode with Mr. Diffie, and that was actually very, very cool. If you don't know who he is, he helped create public-private key encryption. Alejandro Machado, who is another gentleman trying to get on. Alejandro Machado, who is a cypherpunk libertarian activist, Bitcoin proponent, and is also a Venezuelan expat, and he's got a very unique and a point of view and knowledge of the Venezuelan space. Oops, sorry, thought I heard something. Naomi Brockwell, who I was on her Crypto Weekly update, and that went very well. I was very happy with it. Although I will say I had an issue. It was my first, one of the reasons I realized I need to do a few things with my live streaming stuff was that I didn't really do any of this, the live stream stuff. I went on with her about halfway through, started having like video issues. So I ended up going on and having to realize that my upload speed was like half a megabyte a second, which was just not going to happen. So I went and found out the issue was with my cable provider, and now I'm getting, they fixed it to what it should have been, which is like 15 to 20 upload speeds, 15 to 20 megabytes per second upload. So it's more than enough for what I'm using. Marco Peerborne of Decred, I'm trying to get him on. Bill Maurer, not the Bill Maher, the comedian, but he is a cultural anthropologist. I've been really interested in getting somebody from multiple people, really, if I can, from the world of cultural anthropology, because I think that part of cultural anthropology, as they talk about, is technology and how it changes cultures, right? So it's either the invention of, say, like gunpowder within Chinese culture, and then how that changed European culture when that invention was brought to them, right? Or, to put in more of a Bitcoin sense, when we arrived, and by we I mean you people of European descent, when the first Europeans arrived in the Americas, I keep on hearing like kind of like a weird sound as I'm talking. I don't know if that's just on my end. It's like a ringing as I kind of do like a higher note. Yeah, I don't know if that's just me. I guess we'll see once I watch this. But when Europeans first came, and I don't like to use, actually, it's probably not good to use the term we, because none of my ancestors, and since it's not me, I don't know necessarily. But when Europeans came to the Americas, just as a very basic overview of history, is that a lot of the natives, when they were trying to solve the scarcity issue in money, right? So brief history, very, very brief history, as I digress even further. So money has always been about a search for utility. When we originally, you go back far enough when we didn't have any sort of third-party money, right, or third-party form of money, it was direct barter. I needed pork, you had berries, so we agreed upon the amount of berries for the amount of pork that we wanted, and we made that 1-to-1. So now I had pork that I was happy with, you had berries that you were happy with, and we went on our happy way. But what happens, it's like, I don't need any pork, but I have a lot of berries, but I need a jacket, or some animal skin, right, for clothing. And that guy didn't have it, right? So then I'd have to either go like, okay, well, I guess I'll take the pork, and then I'm going to go over and find the guy who has the animal skins, and I'm going to try to, come up with some sort of barter with the amount of pork that I have, right? But what if he doesn't want pork? What if it turns out what he really needed was soap? So then I go to the soap guy and I try to trade him, with pork for the soap, and then I get it, and then I go back with the soap, and he goes, actually, you're going to need more soap than that. And it gets to be more difficult if you don't have some sort of money, some sort of currency that you can use. And the way that I've always understood money is that money is nothing more than just an agreement between people, right? So you can disagree that X is not money, but you can disagree that X is a good or a bad money. But money is, as long as people agree that it is, it doesn't matter, right? So coming from the libertarian perspective of the Austrian school and believing in sound money, right, that gold and silver are true money or a better money than, say, fiat. If you don't know what fiat is, that basically just means government. It's money because the government says it is. The reason that gold and silver have historically been better is that it keeps the government from inflating, i.e. printing more. That for every roughly, I don't know if it was like $20 note, you had to have an ounce of gold backing that to be issued. Where once we went off of that, it was just kind of at the whim of the central bank to go, okay, we're just going to print more money. And why is that a bad thing? Is because every time they print a dollar, it makes that dollar, I don't have one on me, but it makes that dollar in your pocket worth less every time there's a new dollar out there, because it's less and less valuable. It's the same thing with anything, right? If there's one Mona Lisa, if he painted 30 of them, that one Mona Lisa would still be valuable, but be far less valuable by the fact that there's 30 of them. The reason that an original copy of the Declaration of Independence is so valuable, or some would even say priceless, is because it's so rare, right? or even the printings of the Declaration. They're very hard to come by. I think there's only a handful in existence. So anyways, as I go back, now that we have, the idea of when money got created, they were always trying to solve the scarcity issue. So if you want to do, I don't have anything around me that's very useful, but let's just say I say, okay, how about we just use rocks? I'm just going to grab a handful of rocks and here I'll give you 5. Well, that's neat, except for who is going to take these rocks, because now these rocks are found anywhere. So I can just go, okay, oh, you're going to take 20 rocks, you're only charging 20 rocks for this piece of pork. I'm just going to go grab 20 rocks off the ground and just hand them to you. So it's not that these rocks wouldn't have value. It's just that they'd have a very low value, and the amount of value they'd have, it would take so much to be paid into it that it wouldn't be useful to have. You just have these massive mountains of rocks all over your property that you'd have to like change, and then you have to move this massive mountain of rock to their place. It's not that it couldn't be considered money, but the amount needed for just a transaction, even a small one, makes it ridiculous, right? Because gravel does, right? You could actually technically barter with gravel, but no one wants to go, okay, for the price of 2 tanks of gas, you want to pay for a tank of gas, you bring in half a dump truck full of gravel and dump it there. It's just not practical. So one of the things that they found was things like like beads or shells, right? So they're, especially along the, I believe it was North Carolina coast, there's these very specific shells that are harder to find, and they would take these shells and they'd string them along on these these wampum, I think, if I'm not correct, but they'd have like basically strings of them, and you could take the amount of shells off and give them the string of these shells, and that's what they use for a barter. And they also use beads, and beads that were made from horn, or beads that were made from other various things. And basically the Europeans came in, and this is very general, this is not specific, this is just a very general overview. And when Europeans came in, we had like the cost of production of one of these beads and things like that was very low compared to for the Native Americans. So they were able to come in and basically buy up all this stuff. Europeans were buy up all this stuff at the going rate of beads to products or services. But in a lot of places overnight, they hyperinflated the economy. By that I mean that there was so much of these beads floating around, where at one point, let's just say you'd sold as much in a day as you usually did in 6 months. You didn't have 6 months worth of salary, right? Now you may, the amount of beads floating around turned that as, wow, I just made 6 months of salary down to, I sold 6 months of products, and now I only have like a month worth of salary of beads, whatever you want to call that, of money left over. So anyways, the money issue has always been a big thing, and technology coming in and changing things. So I want to talk to them specifically about things like that, where new technologies and money. And I think that the European introduction into native populations throughout the world is kind of a good example of what can happen when you have new money come in, right? It can be bad, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. What's more important to look at is that it changes the dynamic of society. It changes how things operate from top to bottom when you have a new monetary system come in. And in the case of the Europeans and natives, yeah, you can look at it and say that was bad, but that was a totally different situation we're talking about with Bitcoin and fiat. But the point is that it changes things immensely. And just to kind of go over the monetary side, but also just technology in general. And then Jack Spirko, who is the host of the Survival Podcast, he was someone that I would listen to back many, many years ago. And I think it was back in 2012 when I first started hearing about it. It was from him. And he was talking about it from like a libertarian perspective of a new money to challenge, the idea of how fiat currencies kind of dominated the system. And I was, that's someone that I've been very impressed with throughout, all these years, and been very thankful for it because he introduced this to me. And then I started mining early in 2013. Litecoin and other stuff, and wish I would have held on to it, but I sold it all back in the day. You know, I would have a very nice studio right now if I hadn't have sold that. So, but anyways, just a quick update on those are some of the guests. The podcast has been doing good, and I've been expanding onto new platforms. Just recently, in the last 6 weeks, got on Spotify. We got on Google Play. We got on a bunch of like small little platforms like TuneIn. Not smaller, but not as popular. I've been doing a little bit more work on the website. I had to kind of redid some of the buttons to click and do all that. I was doing a little bit more stuff with the Brave browser advertising through their browser, and I've been about to kick off this ALS fundraiser for Hal Finney, in honor of Hal Finney, who was, if you don't know who he is, when Satoshi introduced the Bitcoin white papers to a very close group of cryptographers. And Hal Finney was very important in the history of Bitcoin for a lot of reasons. One was because he was the first person on that mailing list on the email list to respond to Satoshi and say, I'm interested in this. He gave up a lot of very good constructive criticism and needed a lot of coding and help very early on. He was very, 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 very helpful. And he was also the first person to publicly talk about it. And by that, I mean, like, it was within that closed group of cryptographers. And after that, after Hal got involved, he wrote Running Bitcoin, which meant he was actually running some of the first, other than Satoshi, the first one to mine any Bitcoin. I think it was block 70, if I'm not mistaken. We just passed that on the 3rd of January. Was the 10th anniversary of actually the first non-Satoshi block being mined. It was mined by Hal. Hal, unfortunately, about 5 years ago, just short of 5 years ago now, he passed away from ALS. And at that time, it was really neat. Everyone kind of, that was they're still doing the Ice Bucket Challenge. But for any of you remember, about 5 years ago, they had that big ALS Ice Bucket Challenge where it's like, you'd get nominated by somebody and you could either donate or a lot of people did both, dump a bucket of ice on you. Have somebody dump it on you, and then you nominate another 3 people. And so the Bitcoin community kind of rallied, and we all kind of, started, donated to ALS in Hal's name. We called it Team Hal and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of wanted to do that again. I wanted to kind of bring back a little bit more camaraderie. I mean, obviously, it's not going to heal the wounds, but I think it would be a good way to get the larger crypto community to, even if you're not a fan of Bitcoin BTC or Bitcoin in general and think that this project, that project is better, you have to acknowledge that none of this would be possible without somebody like Hal Finney getting involved. So I think it's a good way for everybody to just kind of like chill out for half a second, make a donation, say, hey, we're supporting Hal, and saying thank you for his contributions to the world of cryptocurrencies. So anyways, that's my live stream for tonight. I hope you guys do well. Have a great night. Oh, and head over to didyouknowcrypto.com. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review and a written review, and as well as any other podcasting platform, wherever you listen to that, do that as well. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook. So thank you very much. In the future, I keep on like ending it and then keep on going. I'm going to do a lot more with the video and be have a lot more professional looking. But for right now, this is just how it is. So anyways, now this is my final good night.